So Chelsea have just drawn 1-1 with Salzburg in the Champions League group stages. The interesting thing about this game was that it was Graham Potter's debut game as Chelsea manager. So let's take a look at what happened in the game and see what we can learn about Graham Potter's Chelsea. So in the board in front of me, we've got the two teams as they set up. The big question with Chelsea was it going to be a back four or a back three? And in the end, we saw that it was a back three. And the interesting decision was Raheem Sterling as a wing back. We will talk about Chelsea a little more in depth in a minute, but let's start off by talking about Salzburg, because a lot of what Graham Potter does is very reactive, and a lot of the decisions he made in the game actually were quite responsive to the way that Salzburg were playing. So Salzburg, as we know, a Red Bull team, they are going to play really aggressive, intense football. They're going to counter press to generate chances, and they're also going to play really high aggressive pressing. And as I always do when we're doing Red Bull teams, I'm going to draw these lines on the board. This is between the two centre backs here. And as you can see, they've got all of their players really narrow in this formation apart from the two fullbacks here. That is because they want to get players around the ball. They want to be able to fall on the ball quickly in central areas in particular, try and win it back and then score from there. So Salzburg are going to be all about narrowness and aggressive driving through the middle, intensity, direct play. Leaves a lot of space in the wide areas. Graham Potter knows this, he's played against plenty of teams who play like this, and so a lot of his decisions were based around trying to exploit space in wide areas. So the back three was all about space, because I think it's quite necessary when you're playing in a way to exploit space to have a back three, so you can have Cucurella, Azpilicueta, both of them can get into those wider channels. You've got Reece James, who we know is a great wing-back, but also Raheem Sterling, who actually we wouldn't necessarily think of as a wing-back, but we've seen Graham Potter do this with other players at other clubs, particularly Leandro Trossard is a name that comes to mind there. So getting Sterling into these areas, what we're going to see is an attempt to get the ball into these wide areas, get your wing-backs up against the opposition full-backs here and try and generate problems in those sorts of areas. So Chelsea are going to try and build up from the back, but they're going to try and exploit these wide areas, and their build-up structure is going to be set up in such a way as to cause problems for the high press of Salzburg. So what we're going to see in a Chelsea build-up situation is the two centre-backs dropping in either side of Kepa in order to play out from the back. Now, Reece James is going to drop in as almost as a full-back here, and Cucurella, the outside centre-back, is going to again move out wide here just to form almost like a full-back position here. And this just gives them a little bit of a numerical superiority, that is having more players than Salzburg around the ball so that they can build up around them. Now Salzburg are going to press high. In this sort of situation, you're going to see the two strikers matching up against the two centre-backs in the build-up phase here. And then we'll see Sucic here, the number 10 in their midfield, is going to sit on Jorginho to stop the easy pass into the pivot player. And then across the field then you'll just sort of see pretty much matching up player for player. You'll have your two centre-backs on the striker here, and then you'll push your full-backs up higher. Now, obviously, Sterling and James are playing very different positions here. Now, by pushing Cucurella out, you can allow Sterling to get into this more advanced position, and you're generating space around here to exploit. The thing that we're going to see with Chelsea is they're going to get the ball out into wide areas, and then they've got these two eights here in Kovacic and Mount. They can come across and help in the build-up phase as well, so you can get three players around the ball. And then we've got Havertz as well as the sort of floating second striker. And again, one of the things that he did really well in the game was drop into either side when the ball was on that side. And again, you're getting overloads in these sorts of areas. And this structure shows up really nicely on the pass map. So we've got a pass map here from Opta, and the things to notice are, as you can see, you've got your back three here, you've got your two wide eights in this area, so Mount and Kovacic. And as you can see, they're forming these really nice triangles where they can build up and move the ball down the field. And you've got Havertz here as well. He was doing a lot of helping out on the right-hand side in particular. But the other thing to notice is the two fullbacks in very different positions. So Reece James a little bit deeper, and Raheem Sterling just pushing into more advanced areas here as well. So when the ball is passed out wide to Cucurella, say, you've got Šeško between both of these two players, so he'll probably keep an eye on Silva so the ball can't get passed back. Sterling is here, as we said, in a little bit more of an advanced position, so Dedić here has a question about whether or not he should get further forward. That would then leave Sterling in space on this side, and you'll start seeing the centre backs pull across to respond to that. Jorginho is going to try and get into this sort of area, so you've got the quick pass in here, and what you're going to start seeing then is Chelsea getting overloads around the ball so that they can build up quite comfortably, and actually Salzburg couldn't really cause them any problems on the night. So Chelsea were able to move the ball through the first two thirds really easy, really comfortably, and they would get in these sorts of situations then where they've pushed Salzburg back, Salzburg sitting a little bit more blocky to try and stop them from getting through the middle, and With Sterling on the ball then, the big question is going to be, how do we get the ball into the area? How do we cause problems for Salzburg? And this was a problem that has been an issue for Tuchel's team through the last couple of seasons as well. So this isn't something that's original to Graham Potter's Chelsea in particular. But one of the solutions that they've got is that they've got Marc Cucurella, who is going to be an important player for Graham Potter, is one of the reasons why he's been brought in at Chelsea. And what he can do that's great is that he is nominally a centre-back, but he can get into these sorts of areas, really attacking areas. And so when Sterling is getting isolated against his fullback, there's this overlap ball that you can play in here so that he can then get the ball across the box. You've got players like Aubameyang, Havertz, Mason Mount in the 10 spot, and then even players like Reece James coming in at the back post. So there's a solution there to playing against lower blocking teams in that way as well. So this is all about Chelsea getting the ball into wide areas, moving it down the field, and then generating dangerous situations in the box. And width was really important in the Chelsea goals. So as you can see, Mason Mount really helping out on the right-hand side. This is Kovacic over here, really helping out on the left-hand side. So they're making sure that they've got width between the two players. If we run the tape on a little bit, we can see Reece James plays that ball into Mason Mount. Mason Mount has a lot of width now on the right-hand side, and on the other side, we've got Raheem Sterling and Kovacic offering space on the other side. And as you can see, that compression of the defending players here, really narrow. You've got the centre-backs here in the space of the penalty area, and then all of the other central midfielders all compressed as well. And so what we're going to see in this instance then is the ball going into a really wide area, going across to the other side, and there being space to exploit by just playing a cross-field pass. So we've got a different camera angle here now, so this is the play coming this way. That's the Reece James here's played the ball into Mason Mount. So you can see he's taking that cross in from a really, really wide angle here. So when the ball comes across the box, yes, a few defenders miss that and you would maybe expect them to clear it. But when the ball arrives then at Raheem Sterling over on the other side, he has the time to just put his foot on the ball, roll it out gently, and just set himself perfectly to curl it into the far side of the goal. So width really helped the Chelsea goal in that respect. The only problem was that width and the decisions that Chelsea made in wide areas actually led to them conceding a goal. Now, Chelsea only conceded 4 shots in the game, so this is just one moment that led to a goal. It shouldn't mean that the system doesn't work, but it also does show how making decisions in build-up play can actually lead to problems in defensive play. So let's just take a look at the goal that was scored by Salzburg. And the goal actually came, as you might expect from a Salzburg goal, from a counter pressure and then a quick counter attack. So Kovacic had the ball and was dispossessed, and the ball was immediately played out to Gunnar Duath over on the wide area here. And as you can see, the situation is that Chelsea have pushed forward because they're trying to get the ball into this wide area, trying to develop a dangerous attack, and there's space in these areas for them to exploit. So the ball comes in immediately to Kamari, and Cucurella is going to pressure on Kamari immediately because he's in the wide area. Now Jorginho recognises that Adamo is in a dangerous position, so he comes across here. But after Gunnar Duath has played the pass to Kamari, he then moves into this space and receives the ball back immediately. So Cucurella jumps in a little bit here. And now there's a little bit of a problem because Gunnar Duath can carry the ball in this situation. And because Jorginho recognises that there's space to be exploited here, he steps out towards Gunnar Duath, who can then play the ball down the line to Adamo, who gets a certain amount of space here. Now at this point, there's only a couple of Salzburg players in the half for Chelsea. So you might think that this isn't too dangerous a situation. Jorginho is tracking back, Cucurella tracks back, and as we know, he's really good at making these recovery runs, and he gets into this sort of area. Thiago Silva comes across here to tackle Adamo, and then you've got Azpilicueta here just tracking Okafor. Now, you've got your centre-backs against the 2 attacking players, so that's not ideal. But in this situation, you might think that there's not a huge amount of danger, particularly because the ball is closer to Thiago Silva than it is to Adamo. The problem is that Thiago Silva jumps in, misses the ball, and Adamo is able to get the ball in behind here. Jorginho and Cucurella aren't able to get back quickly enough. Okafor has run a really dangerous line here, and Adamo plays the pass in here to Okafor, who takes it first time. It takes a deflection off Azpilicueta and goes in past Kepa. So what do we learn about Graham Potter's Chelsea? Well, we already knew that Graham Potter was going to be flexible and he was going to work out the weaknesses of the opponent and really try and hit them there. And that's what happened in this game. He knew that Salzburg were going to play narrow, they were going to leave space in the wide areas, and so he set his team up to exploit those spaces. The only problem was it left him a little bit weak in the same areas, and Salzburg were able to exploit him back. So hard lesson to learn for Graham Potter. Champions League football is the really elite level and you can get punished for making simple mistakes. But there's really good signs there that Graham Potter knows what he's doing. He's going to get good stuff out of Chelsea, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out for the rest of the season.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic brings you the best sports journalism in the world in a personalised experience, connecting you with the stories and teams that you care about the most. There's coverage of 13 sports, plus direct access to world-class journalists through live Q&As, discussions and podcasts. Not to mention, it's all ad-free. And you can try it now for free for 30 days by clicking the link in the description.